Hello everyone, this is Dr. Motasem El-Hawary, and today I'm going to cover how to create a fully functional application using a Visual Basic application. To start with, once you launch your Visual Basic, this is the user interface you will be getting. So all you have to do is click on Create a New Project or File, New Project. Now to start with, make sure you're selecting the Visual Basic and then Windows Form app.net. Then after this, you might select the design name and then the location of your Visual Basic application. In my case, I will save it on my desktop and then click OK. Now, after selecting your following application, all you have to do is reset the window layout. Now, by any case or under any case, if you lost all your details or all the different windows within the Visual Basic, all you have to do is click on Window and then Reset Window Layout. Then click Yes to restore your window layout. Now, toolbox should be applied right on the left side, but again, if it's missing, all you have to do is using View and then Toolbox, or using the Control-Alt-X to make sure it appears. Then after this, I'll drag it down right in the middle, and I'm going to locate it in the design location. Usually I use the left hand side. Now here I'm left with my application, then Toolbox, the Solution Explorer, and you have your properties. You might again resize your form upon how you want it to look like. Now, before I start creating my form or designing my form, I'm going to the Word documents that have been applied within your drive, and in this case it tells me all the necessary information on how to create a Visual Basic fully functional application. So as you see here, it says 5 forms. So before I start creating the first form, I'm going to create the 5 forms. We have 2 ways to create our forms, either by clicking on my name and then add Windows Form, and then select the Windows Form and click Add. This case here, you'll find Form 2. Now, if Form 2 or Form 1 are closed by any case, at this case, all you have to do is go into your Solution Explorer and then double click on it. Or you might do another way, which is copying and pasting this application by right click, copy, and then paste. Or otherwise, Control V to paste. At this case, create a copy of your forms, which I'm not quite happy with. So I'm just going to create one by one just to get the form to be the correct one. So all you have to do is right click on your name, add, and then Windows Form. I'm just going to create the 5 forms. I'll get back to you. After creating the 5 forms, I will start designing each of those forms to make sure it is suitable of what is given to me on the Microsoft Word. So to start with, it says here that you will be supported with a folder that has all the images inside it. So I'm going to my folder over here, and as you see here, I'm having all the different backgrounds, books, forms, logos, and my practical revision. So the first part here, I'm just going to go to the forms. In the forms folder, you find all the already created forms where you're going to copy them using your Visual Basic application. In my case here, I'm just going to go to the first form and I'll read the Microsoft Word to find out what exactly I'm going to do within my Visual Basic. But before applying the codes, I'll finish with all the different designs, and then after this, I will start code each of those forms separately. So to start with, in here, it says here you need to add a form background. So this is the background of the form. You need to add the EIS logo, which is right in the middle. And finally, you need to add a one button and to call it start with any font of your choice, size 14, and then it's bold. So I'm going to apply this to my first form. To apply background to my form, all I have to do is selecting A to Z right here in my properties, just to get all my different properties or settings alphabetically laid. So in my case here, says font. I'm just going to go to background. So background image here says none. All I have to do is click on the three dots where it shows me the local source or project's resource file. I'm just going to keep it all the time in the local source to select it from my folder. Now I'm going here to my background and I'm selecting the correct background. Click OK once you've chosen your background. Now as you see here, the size of the background is a little bit stretched toward my form. So I'll make sure this background fits my form properly. So all I have to do is go into the background image layout and selecting stretch. Now using the stretch option here, it will be able to stretch your image no matter how you're changing the size of your background or your form. Now I'll move on by adding here a picture of the IS logo. So I'm going to go to picture box, drag and drop, and then I might resize it. Go into the play button over here, choose an image, local source, import, and then I'm going to my logos. Click OK. The image is not appearing properly because of the size mode. So I'll change size mode to stretch. So in this case, going down, stretch image, and it should be applied. Now ask me to create a button. So I'm going to my toolbox, typing button, just drag and drop the button. I might resize it to my desired size. Change the button itself to start using the text within my property window. Now in here, it says choose any font, size 14, and it should be bold. So I'm going to the font within my properties, making sure it's selecting those three dots and then hitting bold 14. As you might see here, this is the sample of your font. So this is the actual size of your font toward your background image. I'll click OK in this case. So I'm having the first image already done. I'll move on to the second image and I'll apply the same to form 2. Going to form 2, I might change a little bit the size. And then copy exactly the same what I see right in front of me toward the Word document. It says in form 2, this is called a user login. We're going to change all of those right at the end of this tutorial. So I'm going to add a form background using the image folder, which shows here EIS. So that's fine. Just going to go again to my Visual Basic, go into the background image, and I will do exactly the same what I've done within the form 1. Again, I'm going to change the size of it to be stretched. And here it says add the IS logo using the logo folder. So I'm going again to add a picture box. And I'm going to add the IS logo. Changing the size mode still to stretch image. Now in here it says add 3 labels, which is a welcome to AIS library, and I'm having username and password. As it says here, welcome to AIS library should be any font size 14 where username and password should be size 12. So we're going to use a bold in this case, using 3 labels. So instead of wasting my time, it might worth it just to copy and paste the label using Control-C on your keyboard, Control-V on your keyboard, or it could be Command-C, Command-V for Mac. Now change 3 labels using the text. So I'm just going to copy those text from my Word document. So I might type that as well. So this is a username, and third label should be a password. Now as you see here, welcome to EIS library. This should be a 14 and then bold, where those two should be 12 instead of 14. So I'm going to select the first one separately, go into font, and then click on those 3 dots and change them to bold 14. And I'm just going to keep the font as it is, Microsoft Sans Serifs. And I would keep this for all the different forms, just to unify all of them. For the username and password, as both of them have exactly the same setting, so I might use Shift on my keyboard and then select both of them. Go into my font, change it to bold, and then 12. Now going back again to my image, as it shows here, you might add 2 text box, 1 checkbox, and 2 buttons. I'll compare this to my Word document to make sure I'm doing the correct. Add 2 text box, add 1 checkbox, and add 2 buttons. So I'm going to start with the text box. I'm just going to move it around as well. And then using the Shift, select both of them to resize the text box. Now to use the checkbox, simply you need to type it in the toolbox. Drag and drop. 2 buttons in this case, so I'm using the button still, and then copy the button using Control-C and Control-V on my keyboard, and I might enlarge them using the Shift, select both of them, enlarge the 2 buttons, and then you might move them around. Become very handy when you use the Move tool, as Visual Basic lays it straight on where you want it to be. So I'm having the first button here should state login, where the second one should say is back. So I'm just going to keep it as login using the text. And the second one I'm going to call it back. Where the checkbox here should say show password. So I'm going to over the text again and change it to show password. Now, last but not least, using the 2 buttons with the different or the same size using my Word document. So it says buttons should be font 12 bold. Just going to minimize the size of it a little bit so to match the design on the form image. So it says here 12 bold. So I'm going to the font, change it to 12 bold. Now that should match. Let's move on to the third form. Now, third form should be a bit easier. As you see here, I'm changing the size of my form by using one of those vertex points. In form number 3, it says add 3 books using the book folder. Add 3 labels, which should be the topic of each book or the name of each book. Add 3 text boxes, which are the description of each book still. Last but not least, adding 3 buttons which says buy now. So let's find out how we're going to apply those. First of all, I'm going to add the 3 picture boxes. So I'm going to resize it. I will fast forward, and then after this, I'm going to start back after finishing them. Now, after we finished, as you see here, we have the 3 books. However, the form itself size is a little bit smaller in them. So I'm just going to enlarge it. Now, adding 3 labels to match my book. So in this case, again, I'm going to add 1 label and I'm going to copy and paste it a couple of times. Then after this, I'm going to add the 3 text boxes. Now I'm having here the 3 labels. I might enlarge them a little bit as I'm writing the description of my books. Now, to add the label of each box, at this case, all you have to do is go into the folder that's supplied to you and then go back again to books. And here you might find a Word document where it lays all your books inside it, the name of the book and the description of the book. And as you see here, there's a book number, which it says book 1, 2, 3. It's labeled within the images as well. So I'm going to apply now first book using the text. Just going to copy and paste the topic itself. Now make sure after selecting the book titles, make sure you're selecting the right description of each of them as well. So I've chosen book 1, 3, and 5. So I'm going to copy the description of each of those. Using Control-C. And then going to the text, Control-V. Now as you noticed here, only 1 line that displayed within your text box. To change that, all you need to do is click on the play and then multiple line or multi-lines. And that should stretch down. I'll do the same for those 3. Now, after finishing the 3 books, I'm just going to follow again the description on my Word document. And here it says the labels themselves supposed to be any font of my choice and then 12-point bold. So text box are the same, copy and paste it only. However, I'm just going to change those 3 labels, selecting them by using Shift, and then go into my font. Keep the same font, but then 12. So all of them should be matching. Now creating the 3 buttons, that's as easy straightforward. But before I do this, I need to read the description of the button itself. It says the button should display play it now or buy it now, sorry. Font size 11 point, bold, black back color, and then white fore color. So I'm gonna choose the button from my toolbox. And then I'm going to apply all those different settings to my button, and I'm going to copy and paste it 2 times. Now, to change the back color, you need to go to a back color over here and change it to black. Now, to change the fore color, which is the text itself, I'm going to the F for fore color and change it to white. Now I'm going to rename it using the text. And then I'm going to copy it and paste it 2 times. Now that should match whatever I see right in front of me in the image. Now before I move on, I'm going to add the 3 books using my books folder. Now make sure you're selecting the correct book that again it match the title and it match the description. Now let's move on to the fourth form. I'll make sure before I move to another form by hitting Ctrl S on my keyboard to save each of those forms. So going to form number 4. As you see here, I'm having a couple of labels. I'm having a combo box, 2 list boxes, and a few buttons. So I'll move on and then change the size of my form. Now I don't need the book tab anymore. So form 4, add 6 labels. So let me add 6 labels first. Now I'll copy the label and paste it 5 times using Ctrl C and Ctrl V. Great. As says here, those are 6 labels. Select delivery, day and time. And I'll move on changing those names. Now, after I finished all my labelings, all I have to do now, change the size of it. As it says here, all of them should be font 11, then it should be bold. So I'll just click and drag to select all of them, and then I'm going to release my finger of the mouse. I'm going to my font, and then changing them to match my Word document. Now I'm going to refer to my image to make sure that I apply them at the same place. Now after I added all of them at the same place or move them around, I'm going to start the second part. Now it says here add 1 combo box. So I'm going to my toolbox again and typing the name of the object. Now it says add 2 list boxes. So I'm going to type list box, adding 2 of those list boxes. Now 2 buttons should be added and removed between the list boxes. So I'm going to start with the button. I'm going to copy and paste it twice. Now one of them should show add, and the other one should display remove. Now make sure to refer back again to my image to make sure I'm doing the correct steps. Now after this, in the Word document, it says here, add 2 text boxes, which I believe the 2 text boxes here where I'm going to type in them the numbers. That looks good. Now all I have to do now is adding the 4 buttons. Add 4 buttons with the arithmetical signs. So I'm going to use a 1 button, just copy it 3 times. Now to make sure all of them are laid correctly, all you have to do is drag and select both of them and just use the alignment over here. So align them right in the middle and make sure they are again having a same size or same space between each of those buttons. Now I'm just going to change them. Now I will change the font again to match my Word document, which says here the 4 buttons should be size 11 bold. So I'll select all of them and change the size using the font. Now it says here add 1 button which says pay now. Let's refer to my image first. So that's the pay now. Just going to add it here as a button. Maximize it. And just add pay now. Now it says here this should be a black background and a white foreground. So let me do it the same. Going again to a 4 color, make sure this is a white, and then the back color, making sure it's a black. Now refer to the Word document. It says here should be size 12. Here we go. So that should match my image over here. Let's move on to the next part. But before I move on to the next part here, as it says here within each of those, let's find out what we're going to write in the combo box. Now it says in the combo box, add 5 days delivery date followed by 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. So I'm just going to copy this. Control C on your keyboard. Going to my combo box. Click on the display button here and then edit items. First of all, I'm going to add my days. Now after finishing my days, all I'll have to do is hitting space and then Control V. After I'm done, just going to click on OK. Now this is the same thing for the last box. It asks me here in the last box to copy and paste book names using the MS Word document in one list box only. So they're going to be on the left one over here because this is what we're going to add to the list box 2 or remove it from list box 2. So I'm going to the list box, click on the play button, edit items, and then I'm going to make sure that I'm selecting the book document and just copy those names. Now after I'm done, I'm just going to click OK, and all the books should be displayed now within my list box. Now in here it doesn't say anything about the size of the text that should be laid within the text box, so I'll keep it exactly the same. Now let's move to the last form. Now going again to the last form, image, and following it by the Word document. Now form 5 here says add one image, which is again using it from the image folder. Add background color. Again, I'm going to add this time color, not an image. One label, and then one button. So let me just go to the Visual Basic to apply the following. So first of all, I'm going to minimize my form, and then after this I will apply the image and the back color. So starting with the back color, all you have to do instead of selecting the background image, you're just going to use the back color. So the back color here says gray. So I'm going to use anything with a gray. Now we're using a picture box to insert a picture. Now that should match. Now in here it says, thank you for buying this book. So in here, add one label, say, thank you for buying this book. You'll receive a message once the book is available. So I'm going to copy this and paste it as a label. Changing the label itself, and then follow the Word document where it says here, font size 10 should be bold. Now, as you noticed here, the words are going beyond my form. So I might stretch the form a little bit to show the full text, and again adding the image right in the middle. Follow my image, there is a button which says exit, so I'm just going to add a button. Change the size of it and call it exit. Now in here it says 10 point and it should be bold. So you know what to do. Now that should match. After finishing designing the 5 forms, all I have to do now is applying the necessary code. Now I'm going to my Word document, making sure to close the book tab, and then moving forward and backward between my Visual Basic and my Microsoft Word document. Users should move from Form 1 to Form 2 using the Start button. So I'll double click on it and start add the code. To redo this again, all you have to do is click on it and just write your code straight on. Don't click anywhere around. So this code is simple. all you have to do is adding me as the form itself, dot hide, and then keep two brackets empty, and then form 2, as you choose it from your drop-down list, dot show, and then make sure you're adding 2 empty brackets. Now, before you move to the next form, all you have to do is close it and then test it first. Now, as you see here, I open the form. Once I click start, should take me to form number 2. Now make sure to stop or debugging in this case to carry on edit my forms. Once I'm done with form 1, all I have to do is closing it. Now moving to form number 2. And here in form 2, it says, form 2, user should enter the correct password and username to log in successfully. Great. So to be able to do this, I'm going to use if statement. I'm going to add these codes to the login button. I'm going to double click on login. I'm going to declare my variables first. So I'm going to write them as declaration. Username. In this case, I'm going to add st as a string. I'm going to use a common notation as well. So dim string username as string. Going to choose it. And then after this, dim password. So string password as string. Notice I've added string here, not an integer, because again, string could be a letters and words. And then I would say st username as a variable will be equal the text box. As you see here, I'm having text box 1 and I'm having here text box 2. So I'm going again back to my form, equal text box 1, and as the user going to write the text, so I'm going to add dot text. I'm going to dim the password as well to match my variable. So password equal textbox2 dot text. Now in here I'm going to write my if statement. I'm going to add if user added st username equal my name dot eis at eais.com. If this is the correct username, and then I'm going to add and password should equal, I'm adding quotation because again this is a text that will be added. I'm just going to add MO with an M capital 1 2 3. Then what will happen? Then it will react on it. So it says here, if the user is adding those two, then it will allow them to move to the next form. So I'm going to add here me.hide and then form3.show. So now it says here Microsoft Word that user should enter the correct password and username to log in successfully. If user entered incorrect password or username, message box should appear says incorrect password or username. So I'm just going to copy this. And I'm going to use the second part of the if, which is the else. So I'm just going to add one back step. So else message box code, which is MSG box. And then bracket, quotation, and then I'm going to paste incorrect user or password. I'm going to save this by clicking Ctrl S on my keyboard, close it down, and I'm going to give it a try. So in here, I'm going to start moving to the username, writing anything within my username and password, click on login, says incorrect password and username. However, once I enter the correct one, Now, after I select the correct password and the username, it should move me to form number 3, which now this is successfully working. So I'm going to debug first and start to carry on with my form 2 coding. Going to, again, checkbox should show password once it's checked. So otherwise, it remain hidden. So to do so, you need to go to form 2 first, and then click on the text box and make sure you use a property that says use system password char. Make sure this is true. Now, as you see here, once I hit start, I'll move on to the second form, and here the password is hidden. Now I'll hit debugging to start using the show passwords object. So I'm just going to double click on show password, and then I'm going to use here the if statement again. If checkbox 1 dot checked equal true, then text box 2 dot text equal false. Make sure this is not between quotation. Now I'm going to write here else with 1 backspace. Text box 2 dot text should remain true. Now, instead of writing here, as you see here, if I'm writing this code here, there might be misunderstanding by the Visual Basic itself. So in here, I'm adding checkbox 1 dot checked. So this is supposed to be checked. So you should click on check on or check off. So instead of doing this, I'm going to apply here use system password char, and I'm going to remove text here, and I'll add use system password char. At this case here, once I added use system password char, it should work. So I'm just going to click on Control S and make sure this is stating green. At this case, that means all my coding are correct. Let me test it first. Now I'm typing my password, show passwords, great. So it's showing and again hiding my password. Let me stop debugging in this case. Now let's move on to my Word document. Now this point here is done. Now login button will let the user through if he or she writing the correct password and username, which we already applied. Last but not least, the back button will send the user backwards to the home page. So all I have to do is double click on the form 2 after I hit Control S on my keyboard, double click on the back, and then I'm going to add here me.hide form 1 at this case because it's sending me backward, .show Control S this case, and then I'm going to close form 2. Now let me try it out. Now I'm starting. I'm going here to hit back, takes me to form 1. Click start again. Now adding the correct password and username. Now let me show password on hide password to make sure it works. Click on login and it should take me to form number 3. Now let's move on to form number 3. At this case, I'm going to get back again to my Word document. And here it says any button should lead the user to next form, which is again form number 4. This is pretty easy. All I have to do is click on the button. So this is the first button. Now I'm just going to add here me.hide. Now form 4.show. Now as mentioned here, it says any button. So now I'm having 3 buttons here, and any of them should move me to form number 4. At this case, I'm going to my Visual Basic and I'm just copying this code 3 times. Now let's find out how that works. Just gonna close this, Control S first to save it, then close it and see how that works. Now that should be working. So now the three buttons are leading to the same form, which is form number 4. Now let me just save this at the moment. Now in form 4 here, it says combo box users should select the suitable time for his or her book to arrive. That's fine. So we already applied this within the form. So let me just try one more time. Okay, so that works perfectly. And now I should add one of those books to the other book here, in case if I need to buy more books. And in here, I should add a calculator where I add my numbers and then add them correctly to be appearing here, how many pounds I should pay. And then once I hit pay now, it should move me to the last form. So let's find out how we're going to do this at the moment. So now in here, Word document says list boxes. Users should add or remove extra desired books from list box 1 to list box 2 using the add or remove button. So as you see here, I'm going to add or I'm going to remove, and I'm using buttons in this case. So to do this, to add a book from list box 1 to list box 2, in this case, I'm going to add the book over here. So I'm going to start with the list box 2. So I'm going to double click on add first. And then I will state list box 2. Now I'm going to add an item. So dot items. And in this case, I'm going to add. And once I open bracket here, it asks me where do you want it to add it from. So in this case, I'm going to add it from list box 1. And I'm going to add a text. So dot text. So in this case here, I've added a item from list box 1 to list box 2. Let me save this and I'm going to give it a try. Okay, let's say for example, I'm adding this book over here, adding this book over here, and adding this book over there. So I'm having now 3 books. Now I need to click on remove to be able to remove those from list box 2. So to do so, all I'll do is, let me just debug first, and then I'm going to close the form, and then I will hit the remove button. So double click on it, and here I'm going to add list box 2 dot items dot remove. So it says here list box 2, I'm going to remove items. So I'm probably gonna move it from list box 2 at this case. And I'm moving out a text. So in this case, as you see here, I'm adding text or I'm moving text from text box 2. So let me just save that to see how does that work. So I'm just gonna fast forward quick. Now let's find out when I'm just adding here, date and time, just add books. Now I'm going to remove those books because I've copied this box twice. So now I can remove any of those books. So that works great now. Now let's go to the last part of form 4 where I'm going to add the numbers here to calculate how much I'm going to pay. So I'll debug first and then I'm going to form 4. So in here, let me just drag this a little bit down and I'm going to copy the code every time I'm clicking on one button. So let me just recall again the text box here. It says text box 1 and this box number 2. So I'm just going to go to the plus sign and in here I'm going to declare my numbers first. So I'll say declare I stand for integer, number 1 as, now in this case I'm going to add it as integer. I'm going to declare I number 2 as integer. Now, to get the results, I need to add the results case. So declare the results I results as integer. Now, I'm not going to display it as decimal in this case or float. I'm just going to keep it as integer, as in this case I need to get the number after the text without any decimals. So I'm just going to hit enter, and I'm going to declare each of those variables. So I'll say I number 1 will be equaling textbox1.text, where I number 2 will be equal textbox2.text, where I result will equal I number 1 plus I number 2. Going back to the label, if I hit plus, it should show within label number 6. So I'll just make sure this is label 6 as I'm selecting at the moment, where the answer will appear on it. Now, I'm just going to double click again on the plus. Now, at this time, I'm going to enter the code incorrectly. And in this case, why I'm doing this, in case if that happened within the exam, while executing the code, for example, you can identify where the problem comes from or which line. So in here, I'm just going to add label 6 and then equal our result. Now notice here when I execute the file or when I run the file, in the output, it wouldn't be able to execute it as it cannot be converted to an integer. So the string or a text cannot be converted into an integer. Let's find out. Now in here it says there were a build error. Would you like to continue and run the last successful build? In this case, I'm just going to click no. In here it shows you the value of type integer cannot be converted to a label, which is again label 6. And in case if you lost again where exactly it is, you just going to double click on the output. On the string itself of the output, it will take you straight on to the line where the problem comes from. So now, at my case, I'm going to fix this. So I'm going to say label 6.text equal that result. Now, what you see right in front of you when I control save my file, it says here green and there is no errors. Now let's run this one more time. Now in here, I'm going to add two numbers. So 150 plus 15. Now once I hit plus, you'll be able to see the output on the label. So no matter how many times you change it, again, you will find the output coming correctly. Now, I'm going to apply this to all the different buttons. But before I do this, as you see, the number here is getting larger. So I'm going to push pound a little bit past this number so it'll be easier for me to read it. Now, I'll copy this code exactly the same to each of those buttons, but changing the sign itself. So instead of add, I'm going to add subtract, or divide, or multiply, and so on. So control copy for that on your keyboard. And then I'm going to form for again, just double click on the subtract. Just going to change the sign to minus, and I'm going to save it. I'll do the same for the other two buttons. Now, notice please that multiply cannot be added as X. So what you do is, you use Shift 8 on your keyboard, get the asterisk to present the multiplication. Now I'll do the last one, which is division. Now save it. Let's give it a quick try. Now let's find out what will happen when I click on any of those buttons. Now I'm just gonna add 150 and 5 Now, the last part here, when I click on Pay Now, it should take me to the last form. Now, going back again to the Word, says here, Pay Now button should move the user forwards to the last form, which is form number 5. Now, let's do this simply. We know the code now. Just double click on it, and then me.hide, properly go correct. So I'm going to save this, and I've started. And as you see here, every time I'm applying any of the following codes, I'm making sure it works perfectly. Great. So this is the last form over here. And this should be a pretty easy one. Let me just debug first. Every time I'm trying to apply another code, I'm making sure I'm debugging first before I start recoding my form. So I'm just going to hit Control S to make sure everything is saved. Getting back to the Microsoft Word. And form 5 says exit button. Once the user clicks on the exit button, message box should appear saying thank you for using EIS School. And in this case, I'm going to add another way as well by taking you back to the home page. Okay, so at this case, I'm just going to form number 5. Just double click on the button. And I'll say message box. Then I'm going to open brackets, quotation. I'm just going to copy the message from here. Also here, I'll say me.hide and then form 1 in this case, .show. Now let's find out how that works after saving first. Now I'm going to start. It says, thank you for using EIS School E-Library. Once I click OK, takes me back again to the first form. Now, before I leave, I just would like to let you know that each of those forms had a specific topic just written in the form, as you see here. So starting with EIS School, user login, books section, tax calculator, and then shopping cart. To be able to do this is pretty simple. So you're going to go to form 1, just click on the form itself and go to the text and just change the text itself. So as you see here, each of those designs have displaying the name next to it. So I'm just going to Control C, which is copying it. Go into the text, paste, straight on you'll find it change right on the top here. I'm going to do the same for all the forms. Now, after applying all the different topic for each tab, I'm just going to add Control S or saving all my documents. I'm going to close all of them. Now, save changes to the following. I'll say yes. It will be the same for all of them. Thank you for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed watching this tutorial. And if you have any question, please do not hesitate to contact me anytime. Goodbye.